like it just turned to 1:05,
Mhm.
so we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone here today to the MIT Disabilities ERG. It's proud to present a series of events for Disability Employment Awareness Month this October. Every October, the U.S. Department of Labor launches a campaign called National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And this year happens to be the 80th anniversary, which is amazing. Today, we are hosting a moderated panel discussion with the MIT community artists with disabilities. I wanted to introduce myself quickly as Emily Garner. I'm a white presenting female with dark rimmed glasses and light colored pulled back hair in front of a bookshelf and work at the MIT List Visual Arts Center as the Senior Manager of Public Programs. And I'm thrilled to be here today to moderate today's discussion. I'm going to provide a brief bio for all of our speakers and the order in which they will present. Each will make a short presentation of their work, and then we'll discuss their process, themes, and modifications relative to disability. This will be followed by a broader discussion between the artists. I would like to invite any attendees on this Zoom to please use the chat function, and I'll read aloud at the conclusion of the presentations some of your questions or comments. So it's part of the recordings and can be part of the discussion. And I also have some starter questions, and we'll be listening along with you to start that. So to kick off today, we will have Nellie Kate. She's a studio artist with expanded practice in sound, expressing its material power through tones, tapes, water, wood, material, and fiber. Over the past decade, Nellie has experienced fluctuations between late deafness and hearing. This informs her creative research and practice in slowness, the awkwardness of inclusion, collaboration, and repetition. Her work takes the form of installation, performance, and print. She creates spaces for public imagination and healing, often working with trash, reclaimed, and repurposed materials. Nellie Kate holds an MFA in print media from Cranbrook Academy of Art. She is currently a creative director of the MIT Spatial Lab, Sound Lab, and works in other studios across the unceded land of Massachusetts, Pawtucket, Naumkeag, and Wampanoag nations. Next in our lineup today is Laura Beretsky, an author, community activist based in Somerville, Massachusetts. She recently published a memoir, Seizing Control, describing the challenges of living with epilepsy. The book explores the sacrifices we make and risks we take to live or appear to live in a normal life, and gives hope to those who fear the path of fulfillment might be impossible to navigate. Laura's work has appeared in WBUR's Cognoscenti, Health Story Collaborative, Sisyphus, and Wire's Dream magazines. She's a member of the writing community at Grub Street, the largest creative writing center here in the US. Laura has a BA from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and as a tween, she learned the value of participating in actions that yield community change. These lessons were critical to her journey negotiating seizures and others' reactions to them, and pushing back against stigmatization. They were also key to her recovery from brain surgeries. Followed by Laura, we'll have Ned Wolfe. He, him, a queer author and artist whose subjects are heroes, health, and history. Ned delights in making history accessible through comics. His publications include the GLAAD and Gaming Award-winning anthology, Young Men in Love, A Wave Blue World, The Hosting World, Victorian Parlor Games, A Modern Host Guides to Classic Fun for Everyone, and Who Discovered How to Breathe Underwater, Jacques Cousteau, Penguin Workshop, and Carolyn Hugh. Ned swore an oath to protect the Bodleian Library and takes that very seriously. Then followed by that is our fourth presentation is by Jorah Dolan, an activist from Dublin, Ireland, working in the US under the branded name Scree Machine. Their oeuvre spans the world of performance art, filmmaking, audio, animation, and the interactive works, which often all combined in large-scale street intervention projects with arrays of video projectors, known especially for their work with protest movements. Dolan has shown at MoMA PS1, The Kitchen, Franklin Furnace, Moving Image Gallery, the Storefront of Art and Architecture, Super Chief Gallery, and many more spaces in New York City, as well as numerous galleries and festivals around the world. They have taught digital media courses for 20 years in the Cooper Union and Hunter College, and are a 5-time winner of the New York State Council on the Arts, Film, Media, and New Technologies Award, along with awards from Media, the Foundation, Experimental Television Center, CASE, Participatory Safety, Inc., and the New York City Artists Corps. Dolan is also known for their costume design and presence in the nightclub scene and has won numerous awards for their feature documentary film, The Biggest Obstacle, which examines accessibility in the New York City transit system for people with disabilities. With that, I would like to go ahead and share, and let's turn it over to Nellie for your first presentation and sharing today. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you, Emily, for that introduction. Again, my name is Nellie Kate. I use she, her pronouns. I am a white passing woman with dirty blonde shoulder length hair, green eyes. I'm wearing gray headphones and a navy mock neck shirt with white stripes. And I'm sitting in my studio where there's shelves and monitors and other kinds of art objects in the background. I'll just share my screen. Okay, great. Does that look good for from your side to anyone who can give me a sign, thumbs up? Great. My name is Nellie Kate, and I'm a studio artist with an expanded practice in sound. In this first image, you'll see these people in the foreground, me performing, my collaborator Justin sitting at his mixing booth, and a large screen with 4 blocks of color, blue, orange, another shade of blue, and green, with text that reads blurriness in the top left corner, voice gutter in the right corner, bottom left corner it says thrumming waves conjoin, and then the bottom right corner it says speaking into thick glass bottles, murmuring. I draw on my late deaf experience to create intersensory experiences that reconnect people with themselves and one another. My work explores how our relationship with sound can stretch beyond audible expressions through vibrations, visualizations, and open captions. In this image, there's text on the right describing what I just said aloud, and then on the left, there's a portrait of me standing at a public art installation made from steel barrels. It can seem really amorphous because sometimes my practice looks like making furniture, building speakers, hacking old electronics, filming videos, and weaving. And in this series of images, there are 8 images, top and bottom. In the top left corner, I'm on a ladder hanging something from the ceiling. Beside that, I'm working in the back of a bench. And beside that, going from left to right, I am carving a wood block. And the next image, I'm plasma cutting. The bottom left image is some semiotic text. Then there are some barrels hanging from a rack being powder coated in a lilac purple. Then there's another image with some mirrors that say no, now, no. And finally, there's an image from my studio with some different electronic components spread all over a table with a bright light shining in the center. I emphasize light, the body, and sound in the core of my work, and when all of these converge, we could ideally collectively relinquish clock time to experience something phenomenal, embodied, and sublime. And I call the center of my practice ecstatic magic. In this wobbly Venn diagram, light, sound, and body are the key points in a bright yellow, a bright cyan, and a bright magenta blob each. And then at the intersection of each of those is installation between light and sound, performance between sound and body, and photo between body and light, with an asterisk in the middle for ecstatic magic. I have long-term collaborations that I sustain over time, and this is one of the ways that my practice manifests. This is an image of some dancers on a dark stage with monitors above them, and the monitor most visible has plants laid in many layers. Another manifestation is through event production. This is from a really low-key symposium that I hosted for some friends from Australia. And this is Andy Slater, my friend from Chicago, that came down to just share about what they're working on in access in the arts. In the left image, Fayan DeEvie and Stephen Prosky are touching a tactile print that we made at New Impressions Studio. In the right side of the images, Andy is pressing his own press with Stacy, who is a shop tech. And I'm really interested in collectively authored and disseminated text-based media. So the image in this slide is a picture of myself and Justin Looper performing at Dissolve just last week. And in this piece, we spatialized captions on 4 monitors around the room. And in the center of the room was captions that were being live written by folks from Australia. So in this image, it says, on a bed of infinite lung capacity, a chorus of women's voices backing vocals in a pop song stutter and rise like a bedroom fan at night. Can I just do a time check? I could pause here because I want to be mindful of everyone else's presentations.
I think you've had about 6 minutes, so if you have like one more
Yeah.
minute to close out.
I think this is a really great place to pause. Thank you so much for letting me share a little bit about my work. I can't wait to talk with all of you. Oh, let's see if I can. Am I still sharing my screen?
And this is Emily again. And once Nellie has an option to take off her screen share, I'll introduce Laura to go ahead and continue. There you go. Laura, it's your turn.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. Hi, I'm Laura Boretsky, white presenting woman. I'm wearing glasses and my tight curly hair is my signature feature, light brown. As Emily said, I'm the author of this memoir, which I'm going to hold up, called Season Control, which is about my journey with epilepsy, which I had. I was diagnosed with it when I was 6. I had uncontrollable, also known as refractory seizures, most of my life until I had double brain surgeries in 2014. It was a glitchy process. It took a while, but my seizures have been under control now for almost 10 years. And because I was able to, because I don't have to deal with it anymore, I have all this time and energy, not time, but energy to put toward getting the word out about this disability, about what it's like to live with a disability. And especially one that's kind of quiet. Epilepsy, you don't notice it until the person has a seizure and it sort of outs you. And epilepsy has a really long, sordid history. Before like doctors could figure out what was going on back in the day, they thought people who had seizures were possessed by demons. Later on, a couple thousand years later, they thought maybe it was contagious. It wasn't until relatively recently that they could pin it down. And even now, I think brain disorders in general, neurological disorders, brain disorders, it's sort of the last frontier out there in the medical world today, in my humble opinion. So before I had my seizures under control, I get up, I go to work, I do whatever. But there was a possibility I'd have a seizure that day. You just didn't know. And it could happen anywhere. It could happen out on a date. It could happen at the office, on the subway, with my family, and just there was no telling. And actually the hardest thing for me was managing others' reactions to my seizures. I mostly didn't have the kind of seizures where you fell down to the floor, had to go to the hospital. They sort of took me out of circulation, out of awareness for a few minutes, but then I could pick up where I left off when I came out of it. However, the people around me didn't know that, and it is a little bit freaky, scary to watch somebody lose control. And so sometimes they overreact in my opinion and call medics when it wasn't necessary. Or even if they didn't, even if I came out of it quickly enough, I always worried about what people thought. And it was warranted. I had experiences where I lost employment opportunities. That's part of what I wrote about in my book. I felt judged even by some of those folks who loved me best because they were worried on my behalf in a way that I felt was unjustified, unfair. And so I wrote this book to demystify it, demystify the illness a little bit, get it out there in the world, and just in the hopes that, you know, it wouldn't be as stigmatizing for people out there with epilepsy to have to be themselves in the world. You have a seizure. It doesn't, obviously, it doesn't mean you can't carry on and just do what one does, carry on and live one's life. I think Emily said it in my intro that I was raised to sort of try to be part of bigger things. So writing this book was sort of a calling to me, like just to sort of get the um, elevate the issue and elevate epilepsy awareness. And I still to this day, I put out a newsletter once a month. I write a story, a piece related to epilepsy that was in the news, human interest, research, something that I find interesting that I think people out there in that community of the world, people who have epilepsy or love somebody who does, might find useful. And so if I had time, I could read like an excerpt. I have time, right? Yeah. So I'm going to read just from the very first chapter of my book right here. I was at my desk, June sun streaming through my Boston office window when I felt a telltale fluttering in my stomach. Her back to me, my coworker Fiona sat at her desk. She knew I had epilepsy, and I could have told her what was going on, but in that split second, I hid what was happening, as I usually did. This might pass, I reasoned. I was in a complex partial seizure's grasp, internal gut prickles spreading from my belly to my face. Flee the moment and the internal chaos. Take a bathroom break and wait it out, I thought. I left the office before Fiona noticed anything amiss. My brain's misfiring neurons triggered the gut prickles, and I was in the throes of a partial seizure, possibly on the brink of losing awareness. Ahead of me, I saw the the open office area buzzing with people and phones, chairs rasping on linoleum. If I can just navigate the office one step at a time and make my way to the bathroom, I thought, there I'll have time to collect myself. I'd been on this brink before and come back. I'd even gone over the awareness cliff and recovered countless times. I can do this, I thought, just get to a private, quiet space. I stumbled forward, but could only walk about 15 feet. The flutters in my tummy and tingling on my lips had intensified, my mouth twitching uncontrollably. What was this? I could usually find my way on autopilot during a seizure. That one overtook me so quickly, there was no way to escape its grip. I cried out involuntarily, then I was oblivious. Eventually, I would hear the following account from my friend and colleague, Robin. She said that moaning, I'd walked in circles in the office, my tongue clicking against the top of my mouth like an automatic switch gone haywire. My coworkers tried to restrain me, but even in my deeper seizure haze, I just wanted to escape. My limbs jerked and stiffened as I aimlessly paced, saliva frothing from my mouth. My spasming diaphragm pushed air out of my lungs in loud wails. I woke up en route to New England Medical Center with a walloping headache, rivaled by a heavy sensation in my gut as though I'd been hit. But no, dread and disappointment gathered in my belly like a lead ball. I'd had a seizure at work, a seizure alarming enough that my colleagues had called an ambulance. And so that's the opening chapter. And what that was the first grand mal or tonic-clonic seizure I'd had in 10 years. So I was blindsided by my body. I was blindsided by the subsequent job insecurity that resulted from that. It's from in author world, you call the first scene the inciting incident, right? The thing that will draw your reader in. And so I started with that. I've been told by a friend that it's like it's almost scary how graphic it is, but um, maybe he just wasn't strong enough, I guess. That's the lead, and it goes from there. And I will stop there because I've probably taken my time.
Well, thank you, Laura, and thank you for including that thoughtful reading and you said the insightful instructions. Ned, I will turn it over to you to share some of what you have for today.
Alrighty, let me just share my screen. Do, do, do. How's that showing up for everyone? You see it okay?
Looks good.
Awesome. So hello everyone. I'm Ned Wolf. I am a white presenting male. My pronouns are he, him. I have brown hair, sort of in a standard American men's cut. I wear brown glasses, I have green eyes, and I have stubble. Currently sitting in an office with the background blurred. So so hi, I'm Ned. I'm a queer transgender artist. I make history accessible through comics. My work focuses on heroes, health, and history, and my writing spans many genres, including memoir, fiction, and popular history, with a focus on graphic medicine. And that is probably graphic medicine is probably a new term for everyone, if you're not in the comic space, particularly in Boston. So um, Dr. Ian Williams is the founder of graphicmedicine.org, and he defines graphic medicine as the intersection between the medium of comics and the discourse of healthcare. And so within that, graphic medicine is both the experiences of practitioners and the experiences of patients. It covers things from what like different diagnostics and more lab and scientific heavy things to what um, patients may be going through, what practitioners are going through, both the emotional and the practical clinical side of things. And when I started making comics, I started in the field of graphic medicine. I haven't really made too many comics within graphic medicine all that recently. Lately, I've been focusing on writing a couple books, and so that's sort of fallen slightly by the wayside, but I'm excited to get back to it. It's a common theme within Boston comics makers because of all of the hospitals and higher education. It's a really great sort of combination. You find a lot of people who specialize either as librarians within graphic medicine to practitioners both of medicine and of comics, and people who just read these books to be able to connect and to understand and see what other people are going through. And so like I said, I got my start with doing graphic medicine. So these are some very, very sketchy old comics that I made years ago. These are back from 2017. And I have invisible disabilities. I have generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD, and major depressive disorder. And when I started making these comics, it was as a way to um, allow people who loved me to understand what I was experiencing and to work therapeutically through it. I called these my anxiety diaries. And I actually, when I started seeing my current therapist 7 years ago, I handed her a collection of these so that she could understand what I was experiencing. Um, so the slide has two comics on it, and the one on my left features 6 panels. And the first panel is the main character is speaking to a doctor, and the doctor says, we're increasing your dose to 40 milligrams. And the main character says, okay. The next panel, the main character is taking the medication and says, here goes. Um, the following panel, it says Saturday, and the main character sitting at a breakfast table, looking very exhausted with the hand resting on their chin, going, oh, I must be tired from yesterday's stress. And this next panel is labeled Sunday. The character continues to look exhausted, and so their body language just continues to be more and more droopy, and says, we did stay up late last night. It goes to the next panel, which is Monday, and the drooping continues. And it says, I slept so much. Why do I feel like shit? And it goes to the next panel where the character looks head on and says, "Oh right, I upped my meds." Um, and that was just like I was trying to explain how exhausted I felt and what switching medication feels like. Um, and the next page is another comic, one-page comic, and it features the main character sitting in a doctor's office, and caption says, I had another doctor's appointment today. The character is speaking to another physician. We decided to increase my medication, and Dr. S wants you below 10. And the character looks very confused. And the doctor is referring to a numerical scale that I complete before each psych appointment. The exam for anxiety is out of 21 points. It's one of those, like one of those magazine personality quizzes, but I find out how sick I am instead of if I should get bangs. And so that's overlaid over in under a drawing of the GAD-7 with some of the questions. And the cutoffs for mild, moderate, and severe anxiety are 5, 10, and 15 respectively. So that was how I got my start in comics, and really that the look of explaining illnesses and all through that lens is something that I try to carry on through all of my work, to make it as a way people can connect. These are the two books that I have most recently published. Victorian Parlor Games is a gift book that came out with Chronicle books last year. Within it, I actually did make a point to make sure that the games are in updating these historical games, that I offered more accessible ways to play, since a lot of the games are very physically demanding. It's all broken up to what's more active and what's not, and how you can and there are examples on how you can adapt the games. And the next book, Who Discovered How to Breathe Underwater, of Jacques Cousteau, which actually comes out next month with Penguin Random House, features the story about how Jacques Cousteau developed the aqua lung, or the first scuba gear. And one of the things I found very interesting is that this is the page, he was in a very severe car accident, and that left both of his arms broken, and was in an incredible amount of pain. And one of his commanding officers recommended that he swim. And he was like, okay, and was swimming. And that was his speaking with his commanding officer and doing the physical therapy of swimming from this accident is probably one of the things that actually directly led to his developing of the aqua lung and deep sea exploration. And it was a temporary disability, but it led to a really fantastic worldwide discovery that really just opened up the ocean to everyone. And yeah, that is the end of my section. So thank you very much. Looks forward to speaking to you all later, or continuing to speak later.
Hello, this is Emily again. Ned, thank you so much for sharing and then sharing some of the imagery from your books. With that, I would like to turn it over to Druid.
Hi everyone. My name's Garrow Dolan. I am a white presenting shaved head with a grey goatee and two long braids coming out of my chin. I'm wearing a black shirt and a chain necklace with a heart on it. And I'm in front of a background which is one of the images of my current art project in the Media Lab lobby, which has 8 freestanding panels sitting in a lobby in darkness with lights lit up in the frames and reflections in the ground. I am going to, I am non-binary. I use they, them pronouns. I'm going to present my screen and show some video clips, and I'll try and get through them quickly because I know we're running quite late. So we'll see how quickly we can manage to get through this stuff. And I'm going to try and describe them as well. They are video, so it can be quite complex. The panel that's up right away is the logo for my branding. All my art projects are branded Scream Machine. My website is screammachine.com, and this particular logo is circular or oval with Scream Machine on the bottom and Fight Back on the top part. So I'm going to just slowly start playing this and stop it. So first of all, I'm going to show a couple of seconds from one of the protest films that I've made, which is kind of typical of the films that I've been making for the past 25 years. It features a lot of sped up footage in black and white that then freeze frames on particular posters and then speeds up and freeze frames on the next poster. And there's about 20 seconds of this with captions. So I'll just play that.
The people united will never be divided. 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 The people united will never be divided.
Okay, so while that film was actually released as a documentary short in 2021 and got a bunch of accolades and awards, the most that I use my films are actually in installations, performances, and a lot of them are used in street intervention projects. So this is some footage from a street intervention done with that specific film. There are 8 video projectors projecting large on a street scene in New York, taking up the entire block. And there's a group of people performing as protesters in front of it with placards and chanting, one with a microphone, which happens to be me wearing a mini skirt. And the people are a variety of races and gender identities, all chanting, including people that just join us from the street, from the local communities. Again, it's in black and white and has captions. About 20 seconds of this too.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! We don't get it? Shut it down! 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 We don't get it? Shut it down!
Okay, so that is more typical of the work that I do, but in 2021, I released a feature documentary film called The Biggest Obstacle, which is a much more straightforward, less arty or abstracted image-based documentary, and it has open captions and audio descriptions, so I'll just let a minute of that play.
Dustin Jones navigates a manual wheelchair on a crowded sidewalk in Manhattan. He exits the train at 14th Street and rolls down the platform. He arrives at the elevator to the mezzanine to find a yellow barricade and lets out a sigh of frustration. The camera zooms in on an out-of-service sign. Text appears, The Biggest Obstacle, a film by Garner Dolan.
I think the biggest obstacle that I find is the elevator access. It is less than average, very, very poor.
Scene changes to a protest before a public hearing.
We need access! We need access! We need access!
The disability community is under attack. The senior population is under attack. Mothers, people with strollers are under attack. It is horrendous what the conditions that the subways are on. The elevators that we do have, they don't work properly.
Accessibility is a right! Fight, fight, fight!
I am involved in all kinds of different versions of kind of documentary making. And at one point, people asked me or suggested that I should be pointing the camera at myself at some point. So I did. I made a non-linear self-portrait documentary that's a website. I'm going to show you a couple of clips from that. It's hard to describe because this is a website and it has a lot of interactive elements and animations. It's also black and white. There's a big video screen that's set against a collage background with a bunch of clickable buttons and animations that go on around it. Basically, this is me using my own name, interviewing 4 other versions of myself that each tell my life story in parallel timelines that run vertically through this website and in chapters, and each of the chapters allows you to switch between each of the timelines and each of the versions. The one that I'm currently showing is Sensei-G. I am a sensei, a martial arts instructor for many years that came out of, in many ways, my disability rehab. And Sensei-G is telling the story of some of my issues with disability as I was growing up, and it is a picture or a video of me in a white judo gi top against backdrops of my YouTube channel, which I did during lockdown when my dojo was closed. I taught online for the world and became a YouTube personality. So I'm going to play a couple of seconds of that, again with captions.
Around the age of 6, as my body grew, my Poland syndrome started to show. This is a genetic defect that happens during fetal development. I have no left pectoral muscle, scoliosis, and a twisted rib cage. And my organs are displaced, like my heart is not on the left but pretty much dead center. But visibly, the only real thing is the missing pectoral muscle, or tit as my older brother referred to it. He started to call me half-tit, and would whisper it at any opportunity. Then the birth of half-tiff. Then he dropped the half. Too much effort. So tiff it was, for years. Whispered at night as we lay in darkness waiting for sleep, barely audible, tiff, tiff, tiff. In passing on the way to the dinner table, tiff. In the back of the car, tiff. Did the teasing make you self-conscious? It did leave me with a severe case of body shame. And for many years I did all I could to hide my half-tit. It wasn't until I was about 15 or so that, unusual for me, I appeared topless in our kitchen, and my mother noticed and immediately brought me to the doctors to be examined. And that's when I found out it's permanent, and that I was in fact defective, a freak, and should continue to hide it in shame. There was a problem. I had suffered a severe shoulder injury in a workplace accident on the road, and was not going to be able to return to my jiu-jitsu practice. In 2003, I set about scheduling the surgery. Then I got hit by a car in a hit and run, which shattered my left ankle and left me with a future of chronic pain and mobility issues.
Okay, and then there's a whole thing where I go through talking about my gender identity, which I will skip through, just give people a quick glimpse of what that looks like. And the final thing I'm going to show you is my current project, which was also my background. It's called Festival Henge and is currently showing in the Media Lab and is also on our event lists on these Friday jams. So these are 8 freestanding LED frames that I built by hand, and it's an open invite for community participation. So people have submitted various art projects that get shown on the Henge. In fact, the one that we're looking at right now is by Nelly. And then on Fridays, we bring in a big sound system and jam away and have DJs and audio artists and video artists and stuff show their work. So it's a community participation project. The middle clip on this also shows a participant playing the big knob 303 synthesizer that I built specifically for audience participation, for people that don't know how to make music. My computer is providing the notes and the drum track, and people just play these very large knobs on the synthesizer that I built, which is a big white triangular box that has 6 large 3-inch knobs on it that people just get to move around and change the nature of the sound. So the sound that you will hear in this next clip is just coming from that. There's no dialogue or anything. It's just the sound from the synthesizers, and a number of artists' projects are shown, including Nelly's first, Jonathan Williams' second, and the synthesizer, and then the last one is actually my own in black and white. And there's also Chelsea Ward piece as well. And you see people dancing amongst the LED freestanding frames. It's a 20-foot circle. The frames are about 7 feet tall. And I will just let that play. So that's my presentation. So basically, I made this work, and specifically that synthesizer was made so that people with low vision and that are blind could participate in music making without actually knowing how to make music. It's a very tactile and visceral way of interacting with the rest of the people making music and dancing on the scene. And you're all welcome to join us on Friday and the following Friday, which will be our closing event. And with that, I will turn it back to Emily and let it open up.
Well, thank you, Garrod. And then thank you all for sharing such wonderful presentations. I mean, it's so varied with all of your creative practices as practitioners, but it is very evident that you're all kind of like interested in the same kind of bringing in the sense of awareness, of disability awareness. And I'd like to invite anybody that's here, because I know we only have a short time for some questions. I want to note in the chat, Amy was really nice to mention some upcoming events for the Disability Employment Awareness Month. If you want to take note of any of the upcoming workshops, she has put links in there. I'd like to invite anybody to go ahead and ask questions. And I see, Susan, you have a raised hand if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask.
Sure. I just, Laura mentioned this in her presentation, and I was thinking about it with everyone's about the idea of when you present what's going on with you and a disability, that some people it was like too graphic, it's too much, and so I was wondering if any of the artists would be willing to comment on that. It's something that I struggle with in terms of, do you just kind of throw everything out there and just say, this is it, deal with it? Or, do you think about how people are going to, receive what you're putting out there, respond? I'm sure you probably do both, but that's just, I've just thought that was a thing that I think a lot when I share things that, people are sometimes think it's like, it's too much, it's too graphic. How do you approach that through your art?
Yeah, Laura, you said it very succinctly. You mentioned something about managing others' reactions. I don't know if you want to start that and see how then anyone else on the panel would like to respond.
What's funny, because you said when I spoke about managing others' reactions, it was like in the moment to my seizure, which I had no control when I was having seizures, right? So it was naturally my brain was doing its thing and outing me to everybody. But I mean, to Susan's question, when I wrote that book, I didn't hold back, right? And so I told you, my friend said, "Oh wow, that was just like a little bit too much for me to read." And I kind of shrugged it off, like, well, okay, then I guess it's not the book for you, because my goal in writing the book was to like put the experience out there so that somebody who didn't know what a seizure was like or what, could get that sense, I'm a writer, that's my skill set, and I want to use it to that end. And so I didn't hold back. Because I wanted to, it was an awareness elevation choice that I hadn't, like I couldn't have done it another way.
In my work, my everything I do is pretty much in your face, and I get out there on the streets and like basically broadcast what I'm doing as loudly and as widely as possible. I'm used to especially with issues of my gender identity and stuff like that, of being, a pariah on the streets. I've been chased. One of the scenes that I skipped through was talking about how, I've literally been chased like Frankenstein's monster through the streets by a crowd with sticks and stuff, basically trying to kill me for being different. So it's always been my attitude is to be out and be proud in as many ways as I can, whether it's my disabilities or my gender identity or anything like that. I don't really consider people's negative reactions as being um, you know really that valid, right? If they're not able to deal with people that are different from them, it's time that they learn and got educated. So, I like to push forward the agenda rather than, be meek and susceptible to their influence.
So I have a kind of different experience with the reason why I stopped making largely making the anxiety diaries is because I started getting a lot of really um unpleasant for me interactions with readers, in that I was putting everything out there and all, and was finding that a lot of people were engaging with it, which was wonderful. But the downside of having people engage with it is that I essentially became people's therapists, and they would walk up to me at conventions and essentially take over my space, take up my time, and prevent me from making sales and just speaking at me about their problems for hours. And well, it felt like hours. It was really like for a lot of people, it was like 20 to 30 minutes. And while there were wonderful interactions with families, with kids, like, oh, look, that book's about anxiety, you have anxiety, to like an 8-year old younger sibling, the interactions with adults, I found was very unfortunate, in that essentially I was being used for emotional labor, that I was not trained or prepared for, and was getting a lot of people telling me things that they should not have been telling someone who was not being paid for it. Um, so I stopped making autobiographical comics about my anxiety because and other mental health issues because of that. What I'm doing instead is that, when I approach writing my books, like making sure that when like with the writing Cousteau, making sure that I did at the very least mention and make that an like imperative that this was something that came out of recovery from a from an accident, and trying to look at things, continuing to look through at things through an accessibility and through disability lens, but not necessarily um include myself in it, which is very unfortunate. I really had a very I really enjoyed making and the therapeutic aspect of making these comics and putting them out in the world. But when you start getting people telling you about their their various traumas without invitation and without um, consideration for myself, that I had to stop doing it for my own mental health and safety.
That's really interesting. I've been to, it just makes me think of experiences when I've gone to like support groups first, and then I end up like giving a whole lot of support, and then I realize I come home and I'm more exhausted than when I started because he's supporting me. And I think that's wonderful to be able to help somebody, but super interesting. Thank you all so much.
I would love to comment on that too, Susan. Like I think that something that I was reflecting on when Laura was talking about managing others' reactions was that like there have been many times in the course of growing deaf that I felt like the accommodations that I was making were actually for other people, for other people's comfort, whether it was using hearing aids or finding alternative ways of communicating that broke their norms. And in the theory of disability, but also in our embodiments, I really feel the ways that the norm is actually difference. And that it's so rough to have to feel like we are making those accommodations for other people and making other people feel uncomfortable when actually, like, if we were seeing the lens of difference over our experiences as people, it would feel a lot better.
Vero, did you want to respond to that at all, or do you feel? I mean, I think it's really interesting to think about like what you have to kind of balance what motivates you to kind of share it, but then also what that opens up for all of you as as artists. I mean, you're creative practitioners, so you are putting your creative practices out there as a mode to investigate these things. I'm curious, like how you, kind of closing out, really like see what the next steps are for like kind of these like transformation or utilizing creation, or how are you reconciling, any of these like kind of struggles at this point, that you might want to have any closing thoughts to share on that.
I have a comment on art as a tool in this process, because it's quite easy to say, well, why don't you just go to a forum? Why don't you attend a medical conference and talk about stuff like that? I think that we have a unique opportunity as creative people to change the manner of dialogue, the manner of communication, that we can utilize the affordances of art as an alternative method of getting to people, and not being didactic and not being preachy about it necessarily, while still helping people to come on a journey with us. And I think that that's one of the important aspects of artists, as opposed to, people that are medical or being didactic or clinical about the discussion.
Yeah, I want to just bounce off of that and say that like there's something about it that's an invitation, I think, to do more, and like getting away from the didactic into realms of subjectivity, I think create this opportunity for a lot more to be said and to be like activated through like a variety of modalities of audio description and captions and sign language interpretation, and like different accommodations in the way that we think of built environments. And to me, it's such an exciting space, like what comes next, as we make all of these things together as artists and in community with each other.
I guess because I'm a writer, I have to make the strong plug for writing, because that's what I do most. But I also found it to be an incredible tool on my journey, both documenting what was going on in my body so that I could share that with my medical providers, which was a very, very critical to like figuring out medication changes, which can be so difficult, as Ned had pointed out in his comic, right? Meds that affect your brain just totally can flub you up totally, right? So write it down, talk to my doctor. I'm stressed. I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z with my health. Write it down. It's just, it's therapeutic, right? And then I have a record because I could look back on all my records and put my book together. Partly it was because I documented a bunch. So I'm a big fan of the written word. As I said, I still do a little newsletter just to kind of do my part to elevate awareness. I consider myself an activist. I'm plugging away at the state level to help get this bill passed, the Safe Seizure Schools Act. So yeah, kind of tying it all together and just getting it out there, being out there. But the written word, very helpful.
Well, I know it's 2 o'clock. I want to thank all of you for, sharing a little bit about your journey that you've all have kind of like gone on and your creative practicing and inviting us all along on this way of just learning a little bit about what you do. And then Ned, also you introduced us all to like graphic medicine, or at least
very
myself,
cool.
if nobody else there. So that's very, very cool and hopefully enlightening and new learning. So I really appreciate everyone kind of coming here today. I do invite you, before you maybe log off, to look on the chat function, because there is some upcoming events happening with the Disability ERG. And Amy, I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to share as a person that runs this group since you're on here.
Well, thank you. This is Amy. If you scroll up in chat, you'll see a link to our ERG page. And if you scroll down on that page, there's a way to sign up for our email list and onto our Slack channel. I'm seeing folks now showing up requesting access. That's fantastic. And there's also a list of upcoming events posted in chat, and we hope to see you all there. And if you need that emailed to you, because chat's not something you can interact with on this call, just email me, and it's Amy Levin. Thanks. And thanks for moderating, Emily, and thanks
Yes,
so
thank
much,
you for
Roy.
moderating.
Yeah, and to all the panelists, and also to
Thank
Roy
you
for
all.
providing the Zoom technical support, which is vital.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the backgrounds.